The shell didn't hit the vehicle, but it managed to ignite the ammunition stockpile that the Ukrainian soldiers had come for. You don't have to go. The Russians managed to wound one of the Ukrainian soldiers, but it's hard to call that a success. So they quickly reload the next mortar rounds and try to finish off the target. But the Ukrainians aren't just sitting idle. The part of the team that remained in the dugout quickly uses a drone to locate the Russian positions, aiming to launch a counterattack while the enemy's attention is focused elsewhere. And on the way to the mortar team, the reconnaissance unit spots another very attractive target. The Russians assumed they were at a safe distance from the front line and set up a small storage site for mortar shells to supply their comrades. The mortar crew was confident they were safe, so they continued to fire actively, unaware that very soon they might no longer have the means to do so. Meanwhile, Ukrainian drone operators were already preparing their response. While Ukrainians prepared and launched their FPV drones, the Russians unknowingly gathered all their ammo in one spot, unaware they were being closely watched and calmly targeted by the approaching drone. If it weren't for the reconnaissance team, the FPV pilot would have never spotted this field ammunition depot. But thanks to accurate guidance, the drone operator now has a good chance to destroy not only the mortar shells, but also the stash of anti-tank mines that the Russians generously placed here. Friends, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up for the outstanding work of the Ukrainian soldiers. As the camera pulls back, we can see that the vehicle the Russians used to deliver the ammunition was also destroyed by the blast wave. A truly remarkable strike. A North Korean M1 1991 multiple launch rocket system. The Russians didn't even make much of an effort to hide. They simply drove behind the nearest ruined building. The drone operator carefully and slowly approached the MLRS from behind and delivered a strike directly on the ammunition stockpile. The strike triggered the launch of one of the rockets, which shot through the vehicle's front window. Despite this, the soldiers inside the cabin somehow miraculously survived, and within seconds they even managed to escape through the window. But the next drone completely destroyed the system, leaving no chance of rescue. The village is almost completely destroyed, and now there's a chance to stop the vehicle before the Russians manage to find cover. Ukrainian drone pilots prepare the next wave, this time using regular FPVs and get ready to hunt. With a bit of luck, they'll be able to stop the Russians before they leave the village. Knowing the direction of the Russian APC's movement, the drone operator turns around and flies directly toward the armored vehicle. The first strike was enough to hit and stop it, but the job isn't finished just yet. Most likely the crew has already managed to abandon the vehicle, but that doesn't mean they won't try to return later to repair or evacuate it. The armored vehicle appears to be mostly intact, so the next drone must deal as much damage as possible. And now the pilot has an advantage. The target is stationary, which means there's an opportunity for a precise strike, and he succeeds. The first explosion ignites the vehicle, and after a few minutes, the fire reaches the ammunition supply. The drone struck directly at a vulnerable spot. Russians are increasingly avoiding advancing in large columns, opting instead to split into smaller groups. And although equipment is often destroyed while still approaching, sometimes this tactic does manage to bring results. This Russian armored vehicle managed to get very close to Ukrainian positions and began laying down suppressive fire. The trees obstruct the line of sight, and the Russians can't see the enemy, so they fire blindly, hoping to hit someone. The Ukrainian soldiers who didn't have time to retreat to other fortifications seem to understand this and try to quietly leave their position to avoid getting trapped. The crew of the Russian armored vehicle decides to change position, believing there's nothing more for them to do here. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian soldiers safely leave the area and report to their commander that enemy armored vehicles have been spotted in their sector. The reconnaissance drone has locked onto the target and is closely monitoring the movement of the Russian vehicle. Not far from the road, the Russians spot a partially destroyed hangar and decide it's the best place for a temporary hideout. That would have been a good shelter, one that could have really saved the Russians. But this time, they weren't lucky. The nearby Ukrainian brigade, which specializes in such complex operations, had an optical fiber drone ready. From the high-quality video feed, it's immediately clear that this is not an ordinary FPV drone. And since the hangar walls no longer obstruct the signal, the operator has the time and opportunity to aim very carefully before delivering the strike. The pilot moves slowly to avoid breaking the cable connecting him to the kamikaze drone. He flies around the armored vehicle from the side and notices that the Russians left a hatch open. There's no better target spot, and the pilot easily flies inside. Additional reconnaissance reports that the vehicle has been destroyed and no second sortie is needed. According to statistics, Ukrainian FPV pilots manage to destroy only a few dozen MLRS units per month. Both sides fully understand just how rare and valuable this kind of equipment is. And it's even rarer to destroy such a target with a full load of 40 rockets, just like in this case. From me. But that wasn't the end. Not far from this position, another MLRS was spotted, one that had just arrived and was preparing to take aim, but this time, it was the target. The Russians didn't manage to fire a single rocket, and all it took was a small spark from the Ukrainian drone pilot to ignite an explosive and spectacular result. War never changes. Hunt or be hunted. And with every destroyed MLRS, it becomes increasingly difficult for the Russian army to recover.